8:37 a.m. Los Angeles County Courthouse. Less than 2 minutes after an anonymous witness began their testimony, the judge suddenly ordered the immediate arrest of Jennifer Lopez on the spot. No one had time to react. Jennifer stood up, stared directly at the jury, then took a step back before law enforcement could reach her. She slipped through a staff-only back door and completely vanished from the courthouse premises.
Everything inside
Police described the situation plainly. There's no doubt about it. She fled what paralyzed the entire courtroom.
If a female
wasn't
warden
just
can
J.Lo's
vanish
abrupt
after a
escape,
single
but the
nothing
content of the
except the
testimony
fear.
itself.
If
It
a
was
female
Jennifer
warden
Lopez
can
who forced me
vanish
to go.
after a single
She planned
note,
it with
the
Diddy.
ones who
She
once
knew I would
worked
be drugged.
overnight in
She's
that
the one who
area.
set up the cameras.
The ones who
the
filed
air in
for
the
leave
courtroom
without
turned
giving
to
a
ice.
reason.
A
The
defense
ones who
attorney
saw
dropped
but
his
never
phone.
spoke.
A female
No
juror
one
shot up from
mentions
her
the
seat,
note,
her hands
but everyone
trembling in a
knows
matter
it
of seconds.
appeared.
One of the
And
most
if what it
glamorous
says is
icons in
true,
Hollywood was
then
stripped
punishment.
bare with a single
Part
sentence.
3.
And Jennifer
The
Lopez,
person no
once a
longer in
headliner
the
at the
system.
Super
The
Bowl,
internal
was now being
personnel
hunted like a
database of the
high-profile
Atlanta
criminal from
Federal
behind the
Detention
courtroom
Center
doors.
updated
The
its
security
weekly
camera
roster.
captured the final
Under the
moment.
category
Jennifer
Special
stepped past the
Personnel Code
threshold,
Adjustment,
removed her
the
sunglasses,
name of
pulled out her
Warden
phone, and
TD
burst
was
into
marked
laughter.
as removed
Part
from
1,
system
arrest
by
warrant issued in the middle of the
administrative
trial Tuesday,
There was
June
no
17th,
decision number
9 a.m.
recorded.
Inside
It was
courtroom
deactivated.
14 of the Los Angeles
Her
County
personal
Courthouse.
contact
The
information
24th hearing in the
disappeared
federal
from the
investigation
internal
series
network
into Sean
exactly
Diddy comes in
36
officially
hours
began in an
after she
atmosphere
filed
that
her
seemed calm
complaint.
and uneventful.
The change
No one
log
could have
was
predicted that just
executed
over
from the
30 minutes
system's
later,
highest
this very
access
room would
level
become the
server,
epicenter
a
of one of
device
the most
bearing the
shocking legal
identifier
upheavals in the American entertainment
DCCA1,
industry.
located
When Jennifer
in the
Lopez, the
coordination
top Latin
office on the
music star,
fourth floor of the
unexpectedly became the
Security
subject of an
Administration
emergency
wing.
arrest warrant issued
Only
right in the
two
middle of the
individuals
session.
possessed the
Presiding that
authority
day
to
was Judge
perform
Miles
a
Radford,
system-level
who had handled
personnel
several of
removal at
Hollywood's
that tier,
high-profile
the head
scandals.
of
According
Federal
to the
Human
original plan,
Resources
Jennifer
and
was only
Detention
present as a
Center.
secondary witness, quietly entering the room at
confirmation
8:50 a.m.
exists.
dressed
Was
entirely
made.
in black,
The
wearing
removal of
sunglasses and
Warden
saying nothing to the
TD's name
reporters
was
waiting
not
outside.
accompanied by any
Everything went according
or
to schedule
protective
until
reassignment.
9:24 a.m. when a
At
protected witness
11:20
referred to as
a.m.,
Ms.
a
D
printed
for
copy of the
confidentiality
personnel
appeared via
deployment
secure
chart
video
was generated
transmission
in
from an
preparation
undisclosed
for the new
location in a
week's
thick and
schedule.
suffocatingly tense
Under the
silence.
section
She
marked
began to speak
Internal
with a
Alert,
trembling voice,
TD's
yet her
name
words came out crisp and clear. She claimed that the person who brought her to the party wasn't just Diddy, but Jennifer Lopez herself, who, according to the witness, knew the entire setup beforehand, was the one who called her to attend, lied that it was a private gathering, and then led her into the room where the horrifying events began. The witness even asserted that Jennifer knew exactly where the cameras were placed. The entire courtroom fell dead silent. The stenographer froze mid-typing. Prosecutor exchanged stunned looks. A member of the jury sprang to her feet in shock. Jennifer Lopez remained seated, her face expressionless, but her eyes hidden behind dark glasses began to dart repeatedly toward the left side of the room. 3 minutes after the testimony, Judge Radford banged his gavel and abruptly ordered a recess of all proceedings, then solemnly read aloud the warrant based on the testimony of the protected witness and corroborating data filed under Appendix B-27. This court issues a temporary arrest warrant for Jennifer Lopez for the purpose of investigating potential complicity in the orchestration of coercive acts and the unlawful use of video recordings to psychologically intimidate the victim. This warrant is effective immediately within seconds. Court officers advanced from both sides of the room, but before they could reach her, Jennifer stood up, removed her sunglasses, took a step backward, gave a quick glance to her two attorneys, and turned off her phone right in front of them. She then pivoted and calmly walked toward the rear exit, the door designated for court staff, which is not accessible to the public, according to internal reports. She proceeded swiftly through the ground-level service corridor and was seen at 9 entering the rear parking area, where a silver-gray SUV with no license plates was waiting. Security footage captured the driver wearing a full face cap and mask, identity unknown. The vehicle pulled away within 30 seconds, exiting courthouse grounds at above legal speeds, bypassing 3 consecutive intersections and vanishing from surveillance in exactly 6 minutes, leaving no trail for security forces to follow. At 10:12 a.m. the same morning, a state-level arrest order was issued. The FBI then formally took over the case under high-priority classification due to suspicions that Jennifer Lopez had been tipped off or had already planned her escape the moment her name was mentioned. Meanwhile, her social media accounts had not posted any updates since June 14th. Her public relations team declined to answer any media inquiries and maintained total silence. One security officer present at the scene disclosed in an internal report, "She moved like someone who knew every turn. No panic, hesitation. This was not spontaneous, it was premeditated." What sent chills down the spine of the public wasn't just her smooth escape in broad daylight, but the disturbing nature of the witness's statement. If Jennifer Lopez truly knew about the cameras, knew the victim would be drugged and still led her into that room, then she is no longer an uninvolved celebrity, but a central link in an entire system of victim luring, hidden surveillance, and psychological manipulation through video blackmail. The trial was forced into an indefinite suspension. Defense attorneys protested loudly, but no argument was strong enough to deny that the case had officially crossed the line from a civil hearing into a federal criminal investigation. Judge Radford exited the courtroom at 10:48 a.m. without making any further remarks. He left behind a statement that read, "The court recognizes the risk of coordinated evasion and potential organized misconduct in the actions that have just taken place. All case files related to Jennifer Lopez will now be grouped under Class B felony pursuit. As per federal statute, outside the media descended into chaos. Jennifer Lopez's fans split into two camps. One side dismissed the accusations, calling them part of a political agenda, while the other expressed deep disappointment, labeling it the darkest stain on the feminist entertainment movement. One question captured by a local TV news crew outside the courthouse echoed through the air: if a global icon like Jennifer Lopez can vanish within minutes of an arrest warrant being read, how many other powerful people have done the same and gotten away with it? Part 2, The Anonymous Witness, a testimony in the dark. The identity of the woman known only by the alias Ms. D is currently being protected under a special witness security program, but the testimony she delivered on June 17th immediately altered the entire direction of the investigation through an encrypted video transmission. The only visible image in the courtroom was a shadowed figure seated before a blurred screen, her voice soft but dry without a single tear. According to internal audio transcripts, the witness had spent 2 weeks preparing for her testimony, yet she still had to pause 3 times due to emotional overload, and every word of that testimony was a direct blow to the image of Jennifer Lopez, who until then had only been mentioned in the case as a peripheral witness. I was invited to a party not by Diddy but by a representative of Jennifer. They told me there might be a chance to work with her music team, even hinted that I could appear in a music video if I made a good impression. I believed them, and I went. Those were Ms. D's opening lines, delivered calmly, but each word landed in the courtroom like a punch. According to her account, the party was held at a villa in Hidden Hills, nestled deep in the western suburbs of Los Angeles, a location often rented by A-list celebrities for private events. She recounted how Jennifer Lopez personally greeted her at the door, acted friendly, handed her the first glass of wine and said, "Relax, everyone here is a friend." For the first 20 minutes, everything seemed normal until she began to feel dizzy, her vision blurred, and she gradually lost control over her own body. The witness described the most horrifying moment in a single sentence: "I was led into a room lit with pink lights with a bed covered in a black sheet. I couldn't walk, but she still held my hand and pulled me in." When asked who she referred to, the witness didn't hesitate: Jennifer Lopez. It was her. Those present in court later recalled that the atmosphere shifted completely after that statement. The jurors collectively bowed their heads to take notes, while the defense attorneys simultaneously moved to object and asked to pause the testimony due to lack of concrete evidence. But the judge promptly denied all motions and allowed her to continue. Ms. D made it clear that she couldn't remember what happened after entering the room. However, a week later she received an anonymous email sent to her personal address containing a video clip over 90 seconds long showing her in a dazed, unresponsive state, filmed from the opposite corner of the bedroom. The video didn't clearly show whether anyone else was present, but the witness firmly stated, "I saw Jennifer's reflection in the wardrobe mirror. She was holding a phone." Not long after that, she began receiving threatening messages warning her to keep quiet if you don't want your career and family destroyed. The messages were unsigned, had no sender address, but contained highly sensitive personal information: her mother's home address, her sister's school schedule, her own travel itinerary. All of it suggested that the sender had access to a tightly organized and well-coordinated surveillance system. Prosecutors confirmed that these threatening messages had been archived and extracted as digital evidence. What raised even more concern was that metadata from the original video showed traces of an internal email account previously linked to a post-production Studio One that Jennifer Lopez had hired for music video editing back in 2021. While authorities have not made a direct accusation, investigators stated the connection is evident and is being cross-checked with a series of private transactions Jennifer made to unidentified partners in the past 3 years. One key piece of evidence under FBI examination is a set of off-the-books financial records, so-called black budgets, in which Jennifer reportedly wired payments to shell companies based in the Caribbean, a region commonly used for money laundering and financial anonymity. All of Ms. Knighton's testimony was delivered in less than 20 minutes, but it was enough to shake the entire foundation of the case, transforming someone previously seen as a minor witness into the central figure of the investigation. Her composure, the clarity of her statements, and her refusal to beg for sympathy captivated the entire courtroom. She ended her testimony with one short but resounding sentence: "I don't want fame, I just don't want them to do this to anyone else. Even if I die for speaking out, at least I didn't stay silent." As soon as the testimony concluded, the video connection was immediately cut. No one knows her whereabouts except for the federal investigative team and the witness protection unit, but what is certain is that her words placed Jennifer Lopez directly at the center of the storm, not merely as someone associated with the case, but now as an active suspect. In an urgent memo from the FBI delivered to the judge that very afternoon, the opening line read, "There is strong reason to believe that Jennifer Lopez is involved in a coordinated scheme of coercion and victim intimidation through illegally recorded footage, supported by both testimony and forensic evidence, qualifying the case for federal-level criminal investigation." Later that same day, a copy of the testimony was forwarded to the special prosecution team already investigating Diddy. As of now, Jennifer Lopez is officially being treated as a co-conspirator in a series of allegations involving decadent high-profile parties orchestrated by elites to recruit
control and blackmail young women using sophisticated methods where secretly filmed videos are the most critical tool of manipulation. Part 3, the J.Lo file signs from the past. It wasn't only when the anonymous witness came forward with accusations that Jennifer Lopez's name began surfacing in investigations related to Diddy. In fact, for over a decade, amid legal records, quietly withdrawn civil lawsuits, and a flood of rumors that were taken down just hours after being posted by the media, her shadow had always lingered quietly but persistently, like a question left unanswered since 2012. A few reports had raised suspicions about Jennifer Lopez's presence at so-called model scouting parties hosted by Diddy's team, where young women were brought in to network with artists and sign image contracts. But most of these sources were swiftly shut down by counter-statements from her legal team, along with indications that some alleged victims had accepted private settlements. Another incident occurred in 2015 when a waitress at a private party in Las Vegas filed a lawsuit against two unnamed women, accusing them of forcing her into a private room, filming her, and threatening to release the footage if she refused to sign a non-disclosure agreement. One of the women was described as having the same body type, voice, and tattoos as Jennifer Lopez. Yet only a few weeks later, the case was dropped without explanation in 2018. An anonymous account leaked a short video clip filmed inside a villa with interiors resembling Jennifer's private residence. The video showed a woman resembling her standing near a bar with Diddy and an unidentified white male. Just hours after the clip appeared on X, the account was suspended, the video vanished, and every blog that had reposted it received copyright takedown notices from Jennifer's image rights management company. What's striking is that in all three instances where Jennifer Lopez's name was implicated, her legal team responded in the exact same way: full denial, no elaboration, and formal demands to remove all visuals. Citing privacy violations, an anonymous journalist who once worked at People magazine revealed that in 2019, investors, but before the article even made it to the final layout, the editor received a call from a high-level advertising partner demanding the story be dropped or risk losing sponsorship funding for the next 3 magazine issues. The entire piece was shelved. The file was closed. The journalist was reassigned to the fashion section starting in 2020 as the hashtag #MeToo movement expanded and platforms for reporting abuse of power became more widespread. Not a single public accusation was made against Jennifer Lopez. However, investigators confirmed receiving several anonymous tips regarding a famous female artist who had collaborated repeatedly with Diddy at private events, describing her as someone who lured, drugged, and filmed women in pre-staged environments. Yet due to the lack of tangible evidence and no victims willing to come forward, those reports were temporarily archived. What raises suspicion is that each of these anonymous submissions coincided with major image boosting releases from Jennifer, either large-scale private concerts or high-profile music videos. A former post-production assistant who worked on one of J.Lo's projects in 2021 said there was always something weird about the shows where Diddy was involved. Crew access was restricted. No one could film during breaks, and Jennifer's room always had 2 layers of security. No entry allowed. Adding to public unease was a series of legal moves made by Jennifer Lopez, starting in 2022, that appeared to be preemptive, cover transferring most of her personal assets into shell corporations, minimizing appearances at public events, canceling multiple European tour dates without explanation, and most notably dismantling her old management team in favor of a new legal squad, specialized in cybercrime and federal cases. When asked about this in a brief interview last year, she simply said, "I'm restructuring toward a quieter phase of my career." But in reality, it may not have been restructuring at all, but a calculated retreat in anticipation of a system beginning to crack. Because in a recent internal memo compiled by the federal prosecution team, at least 2 individuals currently under investigation mentioned Jennifer as someone who arranged the guest lists for Diddy's parties, and as the one who handpicked the girls who looked promising. If Ms. Diaz's testimony is accurate, then this marks the moment where rumor connects with fact, a pivot point that could place Jennifer Lopez not on the sidelines but at the very core of a psychological exploitation ring, constructed through music imagery, alcohol, and hidden cameras. At this moment, every past suspicion once buried beneath the stage lights and flawless red carpet appearances is now resurfacing like sunken corpses dragged up from the bottom of a lake, and to the investigators, what used to be dismissed as baseless gossip has now become viable leads. Jennifer Lopez's silence, stretching over more than a decade, is now facing the weight of justice. The question is no longer what she's done, but how much more she's still hiding. Part 4, the network behind the parties, who was really in control in every case ever linked to Diddy. The phrase private party has been repeated over and over again as the starting point of disaster, an environment where victims were invited under the pretense of opportunity, only to fall into a trap so intricately staged.
It seemed invisible, but this time the witness's testimony did more than describe an event. It exposed the machinery operating behind the scenes of those music-filled nights, the endless drinks in the dimly lit rooms, and the most shocking part, Jennifer Lopez's name was not outside of that system. In fact, she appeared at more critical junctions than the public ever imagined. According to confirmed information from 3 former logistics staff members who worked at Diddy's event venues, between 2018 and 2022 identities withheld due to witness protection agreements, every party was divided into 2 layers. The outer layer was for mingling, light drinks, musical performances, and limited press access. The inner area was a gray zone where phones were confiscated, personnel were restricted, cameras were shut off, and ambient sound was constantly played to prevent audio recording. It was within this zone that victims were filtered as described by one internal manager responsible for room assignments and image review before guests were sent to the second floor. According to witness D and multiple former security staff, Jennifer Lopez was not merely a guest. She often arrived early before the party officially started and reviewed the list of female attendees. She was described as someone who had suggestion privileges and even intervened in selecting who was allowed into the private area under the pretext of creating a relaxed, welcoming atmosphere. One private security staff member who worked at a Miami event testified that Jennifer was present in the surveillance control room where auxiliary camera feeds were monitored, and that when he entered
no
to
longer
fix the
has a
technical
voice
glitch,
who will pursue
she looked at him,
justice for her
smiled
accusation.
slightly, and said,
As of
"You
the
didn't
indictment
see
against
anything,
Diddy,
did you?"
no
He never
expansion of the
reported the incident
investigation,
at the time.
no isolation
Thinking
orders,
he had imagined
no
it
equipment
until witness
access,
D's testimony
no
prompted
suspension
him
of
to
attorney
return and file an
communication.
11-page
Everything
report with the
inside
Federal
Solitary Block
Investigation
C
Office.
continued as before.
Notably, some of these
Everything
parties were
except
not
the fear.
officially hosted by
If a
Diddy
female
himself,
warden can
but were
vanish
instead
after a single
organized through a
nothing
string of
except the
small
fear.
entertainment
If
companies,
a female
covertly
warden can
linked to the
vanish
same
after a
financial
single note,
group,
ones who
headquartered in
once
Nassau
worked
County,
overnight
New
in
York,
that
where
area,
Jennifer Lopez
the ones
had
who
rented a
filed for
commercial
leave without
office
giving a
from
reason, the ones who
2017
saw but
to
never
2020.
spoke. No one
That
mentions
was the
the
period
note,
when she
but
announced a
everyone
temporary
knows it
break from
appeared.
music to focus
And if
on
what it
personal
says is
projects
true,
that to this day remain
Part 3.
undisclosed.
The person
The
no
FBI
longer in the
currently
system. The
extracted
internal
multiple
personnel
technical
database
pieces
of the
of
Atlanta
evidence from
Federal
a hard
Detention
drive
Center
seized
updated
at
its
the
weekly
home of a
roster.
former stage
Under the
technician who
category
had been in
Special
charge of
Personnel
lighting
Code
and internal
Adjustment,
camera
the name
coordination
of
for
Warden
upscale
TD was
parties,
marked as
attended by
removed from
Diddy and
system
guest
by
artists. Among the
administrative
recovered
order.
data
There was
are at
no
least
decision
2
number
audio
recorded,
recordings,
but was
one of which
deactivated.
features a woman's
Her
voice
personal
saying,
contact
"Let me talk
information
to her
disappeared from
privately.
the
I
internal
have a way
network
to make her
exactly
listen."
36
That voice is
hours
currently
after she
being
filed her
analyzed by a
complaint.
federal audio
The changelog was
forensic unit and is
executed from the
reported to have an
system's
over
highest
80%
access level
match with
server,
Jennifer
a
Lopez's
device bearing the
voice, based on
identifier
reference samples for recordings
DCCA1,
dated
located in the
2021.
coordination office on the
Interestingly,
4th
the
floor of the
timestamp on
Security
this audio
Administration Wing.
coincides with a party night at the
Only 2
Calabasas
individuals
Villa,
possess
where
the
witness
authority
D
to
was
perform a
reportedly
system-level
present. A
personnel
particularly
removal at
explosive
that tier,
revelation
the
in
head of
federal
Federal Human
prosecutor's
Resources
interim report
and
is
Detention
the
Center.
suspicion that Jennifer Lopez
No
was not
confirmation
just a
exists
participant, but was
as was
listed as the
made.
bridge between
The removal of
high-profile
Warden
guests
TD's
and the
name was
backstage
not
technical
accompanied by
team,
any
essentially
or protective
acting as the person
reassignment.
who created the initial
At
sense of
11:20
safety
a.m., a
that would
printed
lower the
copy of the
victim's guard.
personnel
Her
deployment
presence, a
chart was
global
generated in
superstar, who
preparation
once
for the new
headlined
week's
Super Bowl,
schedule.
hailed as a
Under the
symbol of
section
Latin
marked
theme
Internal
empowerment,
Alert,
was a key
TD's
element
name
that disarmed many young women. They felt honored to be personally approached by J.Lo, who invited them into the real VIP section. This leads to a more disturbing question. If Jennifer Lopez was the opener, then who was the controller? Was she just a pawn or the hand behind? The other moving pieces, a seasoned prosecutor speaking anonymously said, "With Diddy, people think of money and brute power, but with Jennifer Lopez, it's all about elegance, intelligence, and finesse. That's what makes her more dangerous because no one suspects her." Comments like these, once whispered rumors on obscure internet forums, are now being corroborated with investigation records, confiscated data, and testimonies from individuals who once worked inside the system itself. What's most terrifying isn't just that one such party happened, but that events like this may have been organized repeatedly on a schedule, with structure and potentially protected by faces the public once adored, trusted, and admired. If the ongoing investigation proves true, Jennifer Lopez would not merely be implicated in a single case, but identified as a central figure in an ecosystem built on the exploitation of power, where music, lights, and promises of success were used to lure victims across a line from which there was no return. Part 5, The Warrant and the Interim Outcome. On the afternoon of June 17th, just a few hours after Jennifer Lopez slipped away from court through the technical rear exit, vanished entirely from law enforcement's radar, the Los Angeles Police Department officially escalated the manhunt statewide. They issued an emergency arrest warrant, with a third-tier priority code, requesting cooperation from state and federal police units in regions where J.Lo might appear. She had owned property by 800 p.m. That same day, the FBI had stepped in, activating the Celebrity Tracking Division, an agency previously involved in the hunts for R. Kelly Ghislaine, Maxwell and other high-profile public figures before midnight. A federal arrest warrant was issued including a detailed description. Female Latina 54 years old, possibly traveling via private jet or vehicles registered under intermediary companies within 24 hours. All of Jennifer Lopez's social media accounts were placed under enhanced surveillance. Her personal email and electronic payment systems were temporarily frozen. 4 properties registered in her name in Bear, Miami Beach, New York, and Puerto Rico were designated as assets under watch and private aviation companies. On the West Coast were ordered to supply passenger manifests matching the suspect's description from the previous. The Department of Homeland Security confirmed that less than 10 hours after losing track of her, Jennifer became a federal-level person of interest on par with suspects evading investigation for organized crime and human rights violations. However, her absence from the media spotlight turned the situation into a twofold scenario. While authorities raced to locate her, public opinion remained sharply divided. A large number of her fans dismissed it as a dirty political flip, targeting the image of America's most prominent Latina artist, an attempt to twist the anonymous witness's statement, a smear campaign to destroy J.Lo's global reputation on social media forums. Hashtags like Free J.Lo and #Stand with Jennifer began trending, while legal and media experts exercised caution, noting that the volume of evidence released so far shows this is no longer coincidence. It's a pattern. Petition demanding that Jennifer Lopez make a public appearance had garnered over 250,000 signatures in just 2 days, while her legal team remained absolutely silent, responding only in an internal memo. "We are handling it." Meanwhile, investigators submitted formal requests for international cooperation under mutual legal assistance treaties, anticipating the possibility that the suspect might flee U.S. territory using a secondary passport or a chartered aircraft. Experts analyzed that if Jennifer Lopez deliberately hid in a country without an extradition treaty such as the United Arab Emirates, Maldives, where she had previously performed, bringing her back home could take months, establishing a legally complex precedent for an A-list public figure. In an internal investigation memo, a brief note stamped in red read, "Suspect exhibits strategic mobility, cannot rule out assistance from high-level figures in entertainment and global finance." For now, all release schedules for her new album, movie contracts, and promotional events have been canceled or had her name removed. Several brands that had previously collaborated with her are reviewing their promotional agreements to mitigate legal exposure should the case proceed to criminal prosecution. Netflix, the platform, co-producing a biographical documentary series about J.Lo, confirmed it has indefinitely frozen the project in Hollywood. Marketing posters haven't even been taken down yet, but behind the scenes, the industry has already started to retreat, gradually distancing itself from someone once regarded as the queen of every stage. As of 72 hours since the warrant was issued, Jennifer Lopez has not surfaced. No official representation has spoken on her behalf. No social media post, no denial video, no open letter to the public and the media. She has vanished completely. In legal terms, she has never been more present and in the public's eyes. The question is no longer, was she involved, but rather how deeply was she involved, and who else is she shielding? Behind the scenes, this is no longer an investigation centered around a single party or one person's testimony. This is the moment when an icon is being placed on the executioner's scaffold of justice, and everyone is holding their breath to see, will Jennifer Lopez return, or will she permanently become the first name on the list of fallen stars, undone by the very persona they once built? Part 6: Media Impact and the Artist Community. When a global icon like Jennifer Lopez finds herself at the center of a federal arrest warrant, the first chain reaction doesn't come from the courtroom, it comes from the media. The very platforms
and no
that have
longer
built,
has a voice who will pursue justice for her accusation.
For nearly 3 decades, within
As of the
just
yanking
48
against
hours
Diddy,
of the warrant
no
being
expansion
issued,
of the
major
investigation,
publications,
no
Vogue,
isolation
Variety,
orders,
Harper's
no
Bazaar,
equipment
Rolling
access,
Stone, and
no
billboards
suspension of
swiftly
attorney
removed
communication.
or hid all glowing
Everything inside
celebratory
solitary
or
block
flattering
C
content
continued as
about
before.
Jennifer Lopez,
Everything except
replacing
the
it with
fear.
neutral brief
If a female
notices,
warden can
meticulously
vanish
avoided
after a
terms
single
like
note,
victim,
nothing except the
survivor,
fear.
or any
If a female
unsubstantiated
warden can
defenses,
vanish after a
Netflix
single
and
note,
Amazon
ones who
Prime
once
each
worked
placed
overnight in that
J.Lo-related
area,
programs
the
on
ones who
temporary
filed for
hold,
leave without
while
giving a
YouTube
reason,
disabled
the ones who
comment
saw
on
but
all her
never
older
spoke.
music videos
No one
to
mentions the
curb
note,
waves of attacks,
but everyone knows it
mockery, and
appeared.
cancel culture
And if what it
campaigns
says
on
is
television,
true,
evening
then
news
punishment.
broadcasts
Part
longer
3.
refer to her
The
as a
person no longer in the
multi-talented
system.
artist.
The
Instead,
internal
they call her
personnel
by name,
database of the
followed by
Atlanta
the
Federal
tag
Detention
federal
Center
fugitive,
updated its
and
weekly
suspect
roster.
CNN launched
Under
a
the
3-day
category
special
Special
segment
Personnel Code
analyzing
Adjustment,
the
the
distortions
name
in
of
the
Warden
legal
TD
protections
was
for
marked as
celebrities,
removed from
citing
system by
Jennifer
administrative
Lopez as a
order.
prime example.
There was no decision
Celebrity
number
media
recorded.
power,
It was
undermining the law for
deactivated.
years
Her
on
personal
Fox
contact
News'
information
late-night
disappeared
broadcast.
from the internal
Presenters called
network
it the most
exactly
shocking
36
event
hours
since the
after
fall
she
of
filed
Harvey
her complaint.
Weinstein. A
The
veteran
changelog was
commentator even
executed
declared,
from the
"We are
system's
not
highest
witnessing the
access
fall
level
of an
server,
artist. We are
a device
witnessing
bearing the
collapse of a
identifier
Hollywood feminist fantasy,
DCCA1,
a cult
located
painted
in
with
the
gloss and
coordination office
sustained
on the
by
4th
complicity
floor of
on
the
social
Security
media.
Administration
The
Wing.
division is stark. One
Only
side
2
insists
individuals
Jennifer is a
possess the
victim
authority
of a
to
covert
perform a
revenge
system-level
plot because she
personnel
knew too
removal at
much
that
and stopped
tier,
taking
the head
orders,
of Federal
while the other
Human
side
Resources
bluntly calls
and
her
the
the
Detention
queen
Center.
manipulator, accusing her
No
blunt using her
confirmation
fame to
exists
shield
as
those
action was
behind the
made.
scenes. But
The
the media
removal of
backlash
Warden
was only
TD's
part of
name
it.
was
When
not
the artist
accompanied by
community
any
avoidance
or
started
protective
rippling outward,
reassignment.
Beyonce, who had
At
performed
11:20
alongside
a.m., a
Jennifer at
printed
multiple
copy of the
charity
personnel
events,
deployment
offered no
chart was
comment, yet
generated in
Parkwood
preparation
Entertainment's
for the new
management
week's
account
schedule.
deleted all
Under the
images
section
connected to
marked
events
Internal
featuring
Alert,
J.Lo
TD's
Shakira,
name
the Latin superstar who once called Jennifer her soul sister at the Super Bowl, changed her profile pic and unfollowed Lopez's official account. Ben Affleck, her ex and rumored to have quietly reunited with her last year, has remained silent. Prominent artists of color, like Cardi B, Lizzo, and Sia, have stayed completely quiet. Meanwhile, smaller names have started to drop hints on podcasts and live streams, saying things like, "There's always been something off, everyone knows. Some things they just haven't dared speak up." A source inside Hollywood confided, "No one wants to be the first to attack Jennifer, but no one wants to be the last to defend her either." Simultaneously, the wave of pulling brand partnerships is cascading like dominoes. Versace announced it's pausing all image licensing agreements involved. Jennifer Lopez coach removed all billboards from its "We Are All Glamorous" campaign featuring her. Dolce and Gabbana and Revlon confirmed they're reviewing ethical clauses in their contracts. Credit card issuers, who previously used her image, demanded her photo be removed from their identification systems. A senior PR advisor explained, "We're not judging guilt or innocence. We only know that any face under an arrest warrant becomes a risky asset, and brands never tolerate risk. The most serious impact may not be on TV or ad deals. It's on the public psyche, especially among women, who once saw Jennifer Lopez as a symbol of independent strength and breaking boundaries." Countless articles that once inspired audiences, with her rise from the Bronx to Hollywood summit, are now cited as evidence of a different kind of power, the subtle backstage kind, a power exercised quietly by those who always know how to avoid the spotlight when needed. In women's support groups, instead of inspirational quotes, people now share old clips with questions like, "How many of those smiles were real? How many times did we believe someone because they made everything look beautiful?" Ultimately, bitterest blow isn't the brands turning away, it's the profound sense of betrayal felt by millions who once sang along, copied her hairstyles, and cried when she said, "I'm proof you don't have to sleep with someone to succeed," because if the witnesses' claims are true, then not only did she know was the one who opened the door. For over 30 years, Jennifer Lopez built an empire on perfection, a captivating voice, flawless dance moves, polished speeches, and the image of a strong woman rising above it all. But with just one testimony, one arrest warrant, and one disappearance, everything collapsed, as if it had never truly existed. Her silence is no longer a choice. It has become evidence with each passing hour. The career she once held tightly through glory is being shredded by bits of data, video clips, and fragments of memory that people had once ignored out of trust. Not anymore. Trust does return when people realize it was bought. No more music videos, no more stages, no more red carpets. Only a name remains standing in the void between justice and downfall. And as the truth begins to surface, the final question is no longer where Jennifer Lopez will go, but what we have overlooked for too long. What really happened backstage on those glamorous nights? How many laughs? How many rounds of applause? How many blinding spotlights were hiding a nightmare powered by liquor, influence, and silence? If you have thoughts about this case, leave a comment below. Do you believe Jennifer Lopez is victim of a deeper conspiracy, or the one who orchestrated it all from the beginning? Share this video, hit follow. We'll be back when the truth has nowhere left to hide.